presents Haunted Hall.
Welcome to another installment of Haunted Hall. A very festive installment of Haunted Hall. I'm Louie, and I'm joined by Manny.
Yep.
Very festive.
Very festive. Very festive. I should have put my Christmas hat. Black Santa hat.
I think you wore it last year.
Did I? Well,
yeah.
then, fuck. I gotta get something different.
Got to freshen it up.
I didn't do nothing.
But we're contemplating having a discussion, talking about what film we should cover in December.
I'm still debating. I still don't know.
Still don't know. We're making decisions. We were skimming through the movies we own that pertain to the holidays, and we landed on one that Manny and I love, one that we think everyone should watch with the whole family this holiday season.
Yep.
Sit around the Christmas tree, light the fireplace up,
The menorah.
The menorah, yes. Marshmallow, hot cocoa, put on Santa hats, do all that good stuff. Make it magical, whimsical, festive. And I think those are good words to use to describe the film we're going to talk about.
Like the festive dildo.
Yes, the festive dildo. Good segue. Yeah, good segue there. Because the movie we're going to be talking about today on the show is 1999's Eyes Wide Shut.
You are free. But I warn you, if you make any further inquiries, or if you say a single word to anyone about what you have seen, there will be the most dire consequences for you and your family.
It's a movie. When Manny and I were talking about diving into this, we were like, this is going to be a 5-hour long episode of the show. We're going to be here all night dissecting this movie. Yep. And we purposely were like, let's not do that. So we're going to do our best to not.
I agreed to nothing.
Manny's going to. This will be a 24-hour episode. This will be multiple parts. This is going to be a 6-part episode, Eyes Wide Shut, into the new year.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So, our apologies in advance.
Eyes Wide Shut, 2025.
Eyes Wide Shut, 2024, bleeding into 2025. No, all jokes aside, we're going to do our best to keep this nice and tight with this kind of discussion on this film.
Like Nicole Kidman's butt. Tight.
Yes, you see a lot of it in this film.
Yep.
But yes, Eyes Wide Shut, produced, co-written, directed by what most consider one of the best film directors of all time, Stanley Kubrick. I don't think much has to be said about him as a filmmaker. I think if you're listening to the show, you are quite familiar. Full Metal Jacket, The Shining, Dr. Strangelove, Lolita, A Clockwork Orange. What else, Manny?
Paths of Glory.
2001: A Space Odyssey.
2001, Paths of Glory.
Paths of Glory. The man has directed only
That's
about
most
12,
of them.
12 movies. Yeah, his filmography is about 12 films, but they're all fantastic movies. Again, one of the greatest directors of all time. The film was based, and I'll be honest, I don't know much about the original source material. In my research, I didn't dive into that too much. But the 1926 novella Dream Story.
Traum Novelle.
I would have butchered that, so I'm letting you do it, Manny.
Novelle.
I'm not too familiar. I think Kubrick took a lot of liberties and changed a lot from what I did read when it comes from the kind of, he used it as almost the bones and did his own thing.
It's not too different.
Not as drastic as The Shining?
No, nowhere near. No, a lot of people say that he took liberties, but he really didn't. But it's because he modernized it. I mean, the book takes place, I think, the early 1900s.
Yeah.
It takes place, like 1905 or something like that. You know what I mean?
He made it contemporary.
It takes place there. Yeah, and it takes place in Vienna.
Yes, it's not in the U.S.
Yeah, obviously not. No, I think it's Vienna, and I think it's the Mardi Gras.
Yeah, so he like switched holidays, switched location. So again, Honestly, probably for the better, if we're being honest, right? Like, if
Yeah,
we're being
but
real.
it's not very different entirely, because there's a lot of the little specifics are still there. The person, the wife is still dreaming about a soldier and all that kind of, it's all still there, and him going to the, there's little things that have changed. I think the ending is different, and the implication of how the couple feel about each other in the end is different. But for the most part, the stories, I'm going to say maybe 60 to 70% of the original novel was really not changed, short of, changing it to 1990s New York from 1910s Vienna.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, again, probably a good idea just because of when the subject matter and kind of the setting of New York, etc. It was a good change from what I could see. And again, I've never read the original book, so who knows?
There's a movie too.
Oh wow!
It actually
Did not know that.
turned into. No, I didn't get a chance to watch it though.
Yeah.
I've been meaning to watch it for a long time. Yeah, there is a movie version as well.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
So funny. September 3rd, 1999 in the UK is when this was released. That's my birthday. There you go. I did not watch this in 1999. I was too young. So I watched this in high school a couple years later, maybe 4 or 5 years later, because in 99 I was 13?
Yeah.
So yes, I was not the Eyes Wide Shut was not on my radar when I was 13 years old. But yes, it stars Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman.
Sidney Pollack.
Yeah, I'd say Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, power couple of the late 90s there for a couple of years into the early 2000s. I think they got divorced, 2 or 3 years after Eyes Wide Shut got released. Co-stars Sidney Pollack. These are all
Sobieski.
A very young Lily Sobieski, Alan Cummings, Todd Field, Vanessa Shaw from Hocus Pocus fame.
Yep.
So those are kind of some of the co-stars. It's not a huge cast. I mean, it's a huge cast in one specific scene.
Yes.
But when it comes to kind of principal roles and people with dialogue and stuff like that, it's about 7 characters in the entire film. Mm-hmm. Now that takes us to the releases, because this is a Haunted Hall episode. Now, and it's funny, Manny and I were discussing this before we hit record. There's not a lot of releases of this film. It's another one of those movies we're covering where there's not a ginormous special edition out there that you can purchase. So obviously VHS, DVD in the year 2000 following the release, the theatrical release. I do remember seeing this film all over Blockbuster in 2000. And then that leads us to, that's basically it as far as the initial release. It's not the most exciting thing when it comes to kind of the release that it came out when it officially went to home video. But then in 2007, there was a special edition DVD, and I use special edition very loosely, a special edition DVD and Blu-ray. And it was the first unrated version of the film. And also, I think the first wide format, because everything else was full screen on the VHS and the DVD. So this was the first sort of wide, the correct aspect ratio of the film. And also unrated, which from what I could see, it's not that much longer. I think it's some of the sexy stuff.
There's only one thing that was changed.
Yeah,
That's
it's
it.
What is that? Because you probably...
It's just the orgy scene.
The orgy was
That's it.
slightly cut, right? That's basically it.
Wasn't even cut. Nope.
What
wasn't even cut. The only thing that was different was there were people in cloaks digitally added in to block the actual sex that was happening.
Yeah, okay.
That's it.
I've never seen that version.
It. Yes, the original and that was the US released version. In Europe they released the regular version.
Of course, they got it all.
Yes, because Warner Brothers says that Kubrick was contracted to deliver an R-rated film, so it was with the sex as is. It was NC-17. He was contractually obligated to deliver an R-rated film, so they added they just put figures, black robed figures in place of. That's funny that you've never seen that.
I have to watch that.
That's funny
version.
that you've never seen that because the
I've
first time
only ever seen the
that is
unrated.
That is the only thing that's been changed. Nothing was edited. Nothing was cut out. Nothing was altered.
So like when the pounding has happened, they just put a figure with a cloak in front of it or something like that.
Well, yeah, when like the whole shot, they put someone in there, so it looks like somebody was standing there the whole time. There's 3 or 4 of them,
but they're blocking the sex basically.
Yes.
Gotcha.
You just see like the people moving kind of on the sides of them.
You see like heads and like limbs, but you're not seeing the actual action. Because which is funny. It's not that graphic.
If you did not know, you wouldn't realize that there are things digitally added. You wouldn't even notice it.
Yeah, I never saw that version. I kind of need to go online.
That's the version I saw when I first watched it. That was first. That's how I saw it.
I want to see images of this now, so I'm curious. I'm just curious what those scenes look like because
I'll look it up because I know what they look like. So
when I saw this, I think I rented it, and it was DVD. By the time I got around to seeing it, it must have been this release, which is the one I'm holding right here. Here you go. This is the release. But I think I saw it for the first time on DVD, which would make sense. 07. It was the unrated, uncensored version, so I didn't get the people in cloaks and robes and stuff blocking the sexy time happening. So it wasn't this Blu-ray. It was a DVD from what I remember being very curious.
Dropping a link in the chat. You'll see the image there. If you click it, it shows you the uncensored image.
Ah, okay. I see what you're talking about. I will definitely be popping this into the visual version of the episode.
You really wouldn't know. If they hadn't told you, you wouldn't realize.
Yeah, it just looks like a bunch of shadows in front of everyone.
It looks like cloaked people standing there. And it moved because the shot moves, so it's properly edited in, so it actually looks
interesting. Did not know that. It's just basically shadow people in front of the orgy that's happening.
Pretty much.
They definitely try to block a lot of that screen. You could tell in that shot that they put that they when they put those figures in front.
I don't want to go away with Carl.
Marion, I don't think you realize.
I do. Even if I'm never to see you again, I want at least to live near you.
Marion, listen to me. Listen to me. You're very upset right now, and I don't think you realize what you're saying.
I love you.
Marion, we barely know each other.
All right, so this Blu-ray, I wouldn't say bare bones in a sense. It's more so just a little lackluster, and funny enough, Manny and I were saying that there's been so many releases of The Shining, but not enough releases of Eyes Wide Shut, and just there's not a lot. They need like a giant 2-disc special edition 4K steelbook edition of this film, but I don't know if there's a lot of people clamoring for that. Hence why I think Warner Brothers hasn't done it yet, or no one's tried to go out of their way to get the rights to produce kind of a special edition of this film. So on this Blu-ray, you've got a couple of special features. I will say that there's a sort of 45-minute long documentary called The Last Movie, Stanley Kubrick and Eyes Wide Shut. And all it is a bunch of interviews about Stanley Kubrick's life and working in film, interviews with his widow, interviews with his daughter. They have interviews with Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, Sidney Pollack. Steven Spielberg is in there.
Spielberg's one of Kubrick's best friends.
He was a good friend of his. So they put, he's in the doc, and he's talking to them about his relationship with Kubrick. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a nice doc. I had never seen it. This was my first time watching this. So funny enough, I've owned this Blu-ray for a long time and never watched this documentary. So I dug it, and they even have it separated in 3. If for some reason 45 minutes is too long for you, you gotta you can break it up in 3 parts. There's something called Lost Kubrick: The Unfinished Films of Stanley Kubrick. It's a short 20-minute kind of piece, mostly talking about his unmade Napoleon movie that he really wanted to make. And if you're a fan of Kubrick, you probably know all about that. That was like a dream project of his, and it never came to be, never came to fruition. And That's a deep dive. If you ever are curious, you can read up on that, kind of who he wanted to cast, etc. Then there's another sort of this is very brief, very short. It's the DGA D.W. Griffith Award acceptance speech from Kubrick from 1998. Jack Nicholson introduced it. He's also one of the people talking about his experience with Kubrick in the previous documentary, but it's him talking about Kubrick, basically his acceptance speech and how, I guess, eccentric it was and how he spoke about it. And when you watch it, it's literally Stanley Kubrick, dry as hell, accepting this award. You know, for a guy who was so talented and such a great filmmaker, he is dry as fuck in this. But
he just says what he wants to say, and that's it.
I would not call him a picture of charisma. He's not.
No, he's not.
There is no charisma there.
He's not a very public person.
No, he's very private.
That's what it was. He didn't like being in public. He didn't like being in the spotlight.
Yeah,
But
and the documentary goes into that. How he
Yeah.
didn't like leaving his house. He brought, basically home was work. So his studios, everything. We can talk about Stanley Kubrick as a human for hours. But I say the documentary, the last movie, the documentary on this Blu-ray does a pretty decent job. Kind of just, there's so many Kubrick documentaries. I've seen so many of them that are out there. You can find a bunch on like Amazon Prime, Tubi, I think. There's a bunch out there. There's, the most infamous one is Room 238, the Shining.
237, yeah.
237,
that's
sorry.
specifically on the
Yeah,
Shining.
237. I always say 238 for some reason. 237. That's about The Shining, but Kubrick is tied to that heavily for obvious reasons. But there's so many out there, but this one did a pretty good job in the acceptance speech, etc. Then you've got basically the interviews from that documentary, the Tom Cruise one, the Nicole Kidman one, the Steven Spielberg one, separated individually. You can watch TV spots, trailers, and that's basically it.
Yeah.
It's not a very packed one. The doc is nice. It's a nice addition to the Blu-ray. Again, this is like a $12 Blu-ray, so it's not breaking the bank if you were to purchase this. If you're a physical media hound and you want to own,
honestly.
Oh, I know it is. There should be
some of the movies that are out there that get like the fact that freaking Sidekicks and like some of the movies that like get these like $50, $60, $70 special editions. The fact that this movie does not have one is just, it's a crime.
Yeah, it's weird. It's just probably it's Warner
crime.
Brothers for whatever reason. Maybe just doesn't want. I don't know if it's maybe his estate. Maybe I don't know. But The Shining has 50 million 50 million Blu-rays and stuff. So I don't know.
You know what? You know what? And before we spoke, you said that Chris doesn't like this film.
Yeah,
Chris, your other co-host, Chris,
one
doesn't
of the
like
other many faces.
one of the
here
other
at Haunted
many
Hangover.
faces, doesn't like this film. I'm going to say this, plain and simple. If this film said A24 at the beginning, everyone would fucking love it, and it would be one of the greatest films ever made, because that is what he did. This is an A24 film 20 years before A24 was even an idea. This is 100% an A24 horror film. 100%. I mean, like, every film, I guarantee you, every filmmaker that A24 has released a film from will say this is one of their favorite movies.
I am so happy you said that because I didn't even think about that. And I would agree. I 100% agree.
A24 before A24 existed. Before
Yeah.
half the A24 directors were born.
I think Kubrick in general, if he was alive
Yes.
today, he'd be making A24 films. They'd be, if he was
Yes.
70 now,
Yes.
in like 2024,
It wouldn't
right
even
now,
be
it's
A24, it'd be K24.
Yeah.
They're just waiting for Kubrick to make a movie. Whatever you want, we're just going to give you money for this shit.
here's $80 million. Do whatever you want
That's
with
it.
this.
We're not going to release anything other than your films.
Yeah, dude, you're right. This would be if someone made this today, it would be an A24
And I'm telling
film.
you, if this were an A24, Chris would have a fucking poster of it in his own room. He'd love this shit.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that don't like this film. There's a lot of people think it's boring or confused. The confusing thing to me blows my mind.
But people think that about A24 films as well.
Yeah, I agree. There's people that don't get some A24 films.
But there are some people who live by A24. They are the greatest production company out there. This 100% fits in their catalog.
And even when people say they don't like Eyes Wide Shut, and that it's confusing, like I said a second ago, that always blows my mind too. Because it's a pretty straightforward film. And that's like when we get into things that we love about the movie. It's one of the things I love about the movie. Like, it's so straightforward. Yeah, there's symbolism and there's stuff like that in it. But for the most part, the script, beginning, middle, and end.
Straightforward.
There is nothing. It doesn't even leave you like time to think. Like, you know what's happening in this film. So that always kind of blows my mind. The boring thing I don't agree with either. I think, honestly, it has... And I know we're jumping the gun here, but it has some of the best acting from Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, in my opinion.
In their careers, easily.
Yeah, I agree. And they both wanted to work with Stanley Kubrick, so badly at this point in 1999, 98, not even 98, 96. We'll get into that. Yeah, we'll get into that in a second. But yeah, I never understood the hate for this. Or I know there's maybe like pretentious Kubrick purist that kind of shun it for reasons we'll get into as well.
I understand at the time.
Yes.
I get it at the time why they didn't. That's what I get. Like, at the time when the movie came out, and not even because it was a dull film for the time, because this film was a victim of its lead actors. The fact that the poster had the two of them they were naked on it.
Making out.
Yeah. And then they had the Chris Isaac song on there. And the amount of rumors that were spread around this film and the media frenzy before anyone had ever even seen the film made it like this film was going to be the sexiest film ever made.
I mean,
and that goes back to the 70s.
In my opinion, and I know we're here now. We're here. I think, and I think a lot of it goes behind the scenes stuff with him, with Kubrick passing away, etc. And you're right, Tom Cruise, Nicole Kidman, 1999. This is like post Mission Impossible, the first Mission Impossible, right before the second Mission Impossible. Tom Cruise was a lister at this point, and the fact that he wanted to work with Kubrick and Kubrick wanted to work with him, what does that tell you? He knew what he can get out of this guy. He knew what he can get out of her as well as an actor. So I just, they were the biggest deal. If you put, I guess, even though I was younger in 99, we both were younger. You're a little older, but nonetheless, you were still younger. You knew everyone knew who Tom.
I was 19 when this came out.
Everyone knew who Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman were. Everyone knew Stanley Kubrick. Literally, when you look at the poster, it's Kubrick, Cruise, Kidman.
Yes,
that sells it right there. So again, I just think I don't think audiences were ready for it in 1999. Just from what throughout the years, because I did watch this 15 years ago at this point. I'd longer than that maybe. I did watch it when I was in high school. So I just think people weren't ready for it when it came out, and maybe even subsequent years that it was released. But even before we jumped on to record, I looked at the letterbox, like just to feel it, to see. I never watch other people's YouTube videos about reviews because I don't want it to affect me. But I like to just look and see where it stands on the 5-star rating, if it's how shitty it is or how good it is.
Yeah.
Most people give this a great review on Letterboxd.
Yes.
It's on the right end 5-star spectrum there. So
yeah,
I think over the years it's got an audience and people are coming around to it or have come around to it. And
this came out the same year as American Beauty.
Yeah, which
and
probably
American Beauty
stole everything.
Year. And this got no nominations. This got no Oscar, and American Beauty went, obviously.
And American Beauty is fucking awesome too. So
it is. But I was even listening to something earlier about this, where there was there was a reviewer at the time, because again, like I said, the media frenzy around this film was ridiculous. And they made everyone think they were going to see a porn. They thought they were about to watch a Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise sex tape. That's what they thought this film was going to be. And the proof in that is in the rumors that spread around how they were shooting this film. Like we'll get into some of those in a minute. But specifically, there was 2 or 3 critics that were very vocal about this being a masterpiece. That this is his final film, and we see why. Like, yes, he went out on a high note. Most others called it crap. There was one specifically, I forget, I think she worked for the New York Times, and she was fired like 2 months later after this. You know, she wrote this huge piece about how beautiful this was, and there was another film that she wrote positively about, you know, and she specifically wrote it against American Beauty and said, that movie may be what it is, but this is the one that deserves all the accolades that American Beauty got. And just the people writing in about how wrong she was, like, just overwhelmed and essentially it was like she moved. That's it. 2 months later, she left the New York Times, and what I was listening to was they were talking about that moment in time, and they said, think about how that was at the time, and think about it now, and say, American Beauty versus Eyes Wide Shut, which one of them has stood the test of time?
Yeah.
Just that alone.
I mean, you go to like a masquerade party, the first thing that comes to mind, people say Eyes Wide Shut. You know,
and
yeah.
You think of American Beauty, and what happened? The first thing you think of is Kevin Spacey's a pedophile.
Yeah, well.
And that's what the movie is about. And it's like, this one didn't last so well. This didn't age so well.
Yeah, and you know, they're very different types of films. So it's to compare the two to me is kind of stupid, but they're both
like auteur films.
Oh, no, of course.
That's what it is that these were both they were both high art films though, that were done in a mainstream, palatable, you know, major wide theater release style. You know, but in all honesty, American Beauty, if it wasn't for the cast and the budget, that's
it'd be a forgettable film. It'd be forgettable if it wasn't Kevin Spacey and everyone.
I think it would have been forgotten.
Birch.
But I think if it wasn't for the cast and budget, I don't think it would be forgettable. But there's a million indie films that are like that.
No,
you know,
of course.
That's a Vincent Gallo film.
And I think both films, and you know, we can go down a fucking deep hole on just kind of both have like controversial shit in it and things like that. But yeah, I mean, to compare the two, I'll say is unfair just because they're so, in my opinion, they're both very different. But I definitely agree with you that looking at it today, which movie impacted, I guess, pop culture and just everything whenever, again, when you see one of those masks, even people that probably have never seen the film know when you see a masquerade ball mask, you think Eyes Wide Shut. There's events now. You can go to immersive events that
are Eyes Wide Shut themed,
borrow a lot from this movie. So, I agree with that. And you're right. American Beauty, if you don't remind someone about that film, I forgot about that movie.
But I think they're both about infidelity. Mm-hmm. They're both about unhappiness with your with life. Mm-hmm. You know, they're both about a couple who are fighting for things that, you know, obviously these issues that have been bubbling up for a long time, they're both to some level about pedophilia. They're both about sex. Mm-hmm. You know, they're both about the dark side of sex and, as I said, heavy infidelity aspects to both films. That's why I compare them. Like, they are very different films, but they have the same themes.
Eyes Wide Shut doesn't have a floating bag though, so it doesn't have the most. Just kidding. That's
it has Tom Cruise walking up and down the same street in 5 different scenes.
Yes, it does. That's why it won the awards that year.
Yeah,
it was that damn bag.
Wes Bentley's bag.
Wes Bentley's the most beautiful thing in the world. That fucking bag. But yeah, some behind the scenes notes that Manny and I have here for Eyes Wide Shut. So again, passion project for Kubrick. He had bought the rights to that book we talked about earlier in the 60s. So think about that. Yeah. My dude had the rights to this for a long time before he finally made the movie.
That actually goes back to something that goes where this started was Andy Warhol. If you know that.
I did not know that.
Yes, Andy Warhol. There was what was the other one? Andy Warhol's Blue Movie in 1969. That was the first wide release porn film, pornographic movie that got a wide release. That was the first one. Just before that, I think 68 was Last Tank. No, that's 72. The cowboy one. Midnight Cowboy?
Midnight Cowboy, I
Is
think.
it Midnight Cowboy?
It's not Urban Cowboy. That's John Travolta.
That's John Travolta.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Midnight Cowboy was 68.
Okay.
That had high sex themes to it. Blue Movie was an actual porn. The writer of Doctor Strangelove, Terry Southern, proposed to Stanley Kubrick. He said, I think what you should do is you should make a film. We should make a high art porn film. Let's make a pornographic film with real sex with at least one Hollywood actor. Let's do this. Let's get at least one big name actor and do a real, a good, well-made, well-produced film with real sex. And let's do this with a high budget. And they talked about it for a while. And Kubrick's wife told him she'd leave him if he ever did something like that.
It'd basically be like almost like Caligula in a way. It'd be like, remember they like...
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. So that's what he wanted to do.
That's what comes to mind.
Yep. Yep, that is exactly what they wanted to do. And so he didn't. So he declined. Terry Southern then wrote, in 1970, he wrote a book called Blue Movie as well. And the book is about an artistic film director trying to make a porn with Hollywood actors. So he made the film, he made a book about Stanley Kubrick, basically. And he even writes, dedicated to Stanley Kubrick in the back. And then Kubrick did Clockwork Orange instead, which also has heavy sex themes to it, So that's what that, and then in 1972, Last Tango in Paris, also big thing. And that was the one with Marlon Brando. Yeah. And that has the rape scene that, if anybody knows, she was not told about. Because of that film, that came as a result of Andy Warhol's Blue Movie and Terry Southern's Blue Movie, and the fact that Kubrick turned it down. Everybody else started jumping on this. Well, let's do this ourselves. So a lot of other people tried to do it because, well, Kubrick wants to do it. If he's not going to, well, then we're going to do it. So that just shows that even back then, the influence that Kubrick had on everything. But that's where this came from. Traum Nouvelle was a story he first read in the 50s. He first read that book in like 1952, he said. And he'd always loved it. And his wife hated it.
Yeah, in the documentary, she says that. I think she's like, I didn't want you to make this movie, but he did it anyway.
And also, I think that's because it comes from this conversation with Terry Southern, too, where it's like she knows that he's always wanted to make a porn, and I told him no. Yeah. This was like his wiggling
around. She draws the line. You're not making a porno movie.
He drew the line, so he just skated right along the line.
He found a way to do it without making it too explicit.
Yeah, and they said it always bothered him how much she didn't like the book, that it actually like personally upset him because he loved it so much. And you can kind of tell, and you look at his films and other things he did, like he always had that kind of, edge of sex to his
always
forbidden. The line of forbidden
Lolita
sex.
Is him. Yes. Like, look at that film. That whole film's about forbidden love, etc. Mm-hmm. That's for another day. But the other kind of the other big thing with this film, and I'm sure you have some notes on this too, Manny, is there's a lot of back and forth whether this is actually Kubrick's final cut of the film. A lot of people, he passed away before post-production was complete. But they say a lot, a lot of the, like Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, he had a screening for them. Mm-hmm. I don't know, like a few months before it was supposed to be released, the release date.
It was 5 days before he died.
Yeah, right before he passed away.
Yeah,
and
this was the first time anyone had seen it. He screened it for 2 Warner Brothers executives and the 2 of them.
And they both say that he told them that was basically the cut of the film. Yep. His estate also, his daughters, his widow, they all said this is the final cut of the film. This is the movie. But there's some conflicting reports because, funny enough, I was reading online, Ari Ermi claims that he spoke. Ari Ermi, he's not around anymore either. He passed away a few years ago. Yeah. But he claims that he spoke to Kubrick and Kubrick said it's a piece of shit and that it's not what he wanted, etc. So a lot of people, it's been like a tug of war. Like when you look up this film and research it, it's a lot of he said, she said. They all had different experiences. At the end of the day, Kubrick was almost OCD with his films. So he was probably not happy with any of them. You know, he'd work on one movie for 5 years. Like he was not happy with any of them. So at the end of the day, a true artist, and I hate when we get into this territory, it's just pretentious shit. He just was never happy. At the end of the day, he probably thought all of his movies were pieces of shit.
Yes.
People look at them now at these glorious films.
Years later, he loved it. But no, at the time, he didn't like anything because it was never done.
Yeah.
It was never he always
perfect.
said that. The film is never done. There's only a point where I stop working on it.
Yeah, and he'd work
That's
2 days before release on the movie. He'd still be mixing it and cutting scenes out. So
he cut The Shining after it was released.
Yeah, the ending, that extended ending was completely removed. So
they literally called movie theaters and said, "Cut this scene out and send us the films."
Yeah, listen, he was a perfectionist, and unfortunately,
I don't think he was a perfectionist.
You don't think he was a perfectionist?
I do not think he was a perfectionist.
I mean, I don't know if I'm probably not articulating it right.
No, you are. That's what people say about him, and I do not think that's correct.
No, I wouldn't say that either. I just think as a filmmaker, you're never happy. Even with something silly like a podcast. I edit an episode of the show, and when I'm done with it, I'm not done with it. No. I could probably sit here and nitpick every single thing we say.
You're never done. There's only a point when you stop working on it.
Where you have to raise your hands and just
when you abandon it. Yes.
I will go crazy.
Yes.
If I
he didn't consider films, Spielberg's the same way.
Yes.
They don't consider films to be done, only abandoned.
Basically, you have to let it go or no one will ever watch it. Mm-hmm. Even like a short film, like both of us as filmmakers, we could both go back and edit our stuff forever. I said, the show, here, I can edit this forever. But in reality, it's not healthy and you'll never get anything done that way. No. So I think that was kind of the situation with Eyes Wide Shut, where he probably could have worked on it until the day it was released. And he didn't get to do that because he passed away. So I guess that's why people kind of feel that,
he would have kept tweaking it 100%.
Yeah. Was it the final edit? And according to just from what you can read online, it says that outside of some, like, I think ADR, some mixing, some music cues,
the music wasn't done.
The music was, but it's his cut.
Yeah.
It's his for the most part.
No, the music was written after he died. Jocelyn Pook did the music for the ritual scene.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And he'd already worked with her because he'd heard a piece from her that he loved. And he used that when they shot it. He used this one specific piece and then her piece fit. So she's the music in that scene. And then they, afterwards, when they needed a composer, they told her to do the rest of it as well. You know, but their music supervisor already had tapes and tapes of what Kubrick was looking for.
It was like notes and stuff. I'm sure he was already thinking about that while making the movie and editing it.
Yes, Kubrick put things on cassette tape and mailed it to the music supervisor. So he had a dozen or so tapes.
So
again, I don't think he was meticulous.
I
think it's very specific. I don't think he was meticulous. I think that's what people say. That's what everybody says. That's what Jack Nicholson says. That's what Tom Cruise says. I don't think he was meticulous. I think that he just he embodied an air of confidence, but I think he was always changing his mind. The 87 takes of something was not because no, you're not doing it right. That's not what he did. It wasn't because you're doing it right, you're doing it wrong. It's because he's not seeing what he wants yet, but he doesn't know what he wants yet.
He's still figuring it out while he's making the movie.
Yes, 100%.
And that's a good segue.
That's why it takes so long.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's a good segue here to this other point about the kind of the production of Eyes Wide Shut. According to what I've read, it took 400 days. So they started shooting in 96 and didn't wrap until 98. So
it was an 18-month shoot.
Yeah, and apparently it holds the Guinness Book of World Record for the longest film production at 400 days, which is fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's only part of it. They only considered that the record.
of when they
It's
shot
15
the
months.
movie.
It's
Yeah.
15 months, 46 consecutive weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Is that? But the film went a lot longer because there were
Post-production
breaks
and stuff. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
no, there were breaks in the middle. It was
Okay.
18 months of shooting. Then there was an 8-week break, and they went back for reshoots after that. So so after 18 months, they went back 2 weeks later and did another couple weeks of it. But they only consider 15 months of that 18 to be consecutive.
I tell you what, when you watch the movie, knowing that it had that long of a period to shoot, 15 months, whatever. If you look at it, 400 days, whatever, from 96 to 98. It's a good chunk of time. There's not a lot of continuity issues in this film.
No.
With the way the characters look, it's kind of impressive.
It's ridiculously impressive.
Yeah, so when I watch it and I read that and I'm like, 400-day shoot, whatever, 2 years, whatever, 15 months. It's kind of insane to think that when you watch it, you can't tell.
Well, I don't know.
Well,
there's a couple of really huge continuity errors in the shoot itself.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like with the actors and stuff. Like you can't
that's all,
tell.
all matches. Yeah,
you know, when you think of a movie like that, you watch
Nicole
like
Kidman's hair looks the same in every scene. His
Tom Cruise, their everything looks the same.
Yes.
You watch some other movies where an actor has to leave, work on another project, and then come back. Like funny enough, speaking of Tom Cruise, quick tangent. I've never seen any of the Mission Impossible movies. Like I've seen the first one, the Brian De Palma, and that's it. Recently. And this kind of was the inspiration.
Is that really
for me.
Brian De Palma did the first one?
First one, yes.
I didn't know that.
So recently, I had a bit of a Mission Impossible. I challenged myself because I never had any interest.
I've heard they actually get better as they go.
They are fun to watch. I've watched all the Mission Impossible movies, which was an inspiration for us to do this because I saw Tom Cruise and I was like, I love Eyes Wide Shut. Manny loves Eyes Wide Shut. Let's do that for Christmas. I was like, all right. Let's do that. So that was kind of my inspiration for us covering this movie. But it reminds me because I was reading about, I believe it's the 6th one when Henry Cavill, Superman guy,
the mustache.
Yes, the mustache. He was like he had a contract. Talk about people leaving and going back to shoots, and that just reminded me because continuity errors happen because people leave projects to go do something else and change their appearance and stuff. That's why I think this is so impressive that the two of them dedicated themselves, Nicole Kidman, Tom Cruise, to this film.
Kubrick made them agree.
Yeah, exactly.
They wouldn't agree to any other projects until this was done.
Exactly. Yeah. And when you watch like the Mission Impossible film, you see him, he's got the mustache, blah, blah, blah. And they had problems with, I think, Justice League it was. So they had to CGI out his mustache.
I don't believe that.
Whatever.
I don't believe it. Personally, I don't believe it. I think that Henry Cavill was just trying to get out of doing reshoots because he didn't want to do them with anyone other than Zack Snyder.
I mean, I'll be honest, I don't remember the movie.
It's the opening shot of the first release Justice League.
Yeah.
It looks horrible. It looks absolutely terrible. It's some of the worst CG you've ever seen in your life.
I've only seen Justice League once, and I don't remember like the mustache CGI thing. Oh, really? I mean, I got to go back and watch it. But
it's the first shot of the movie. Oh, it's dog shit. It's some of the worst CG you've ever seen.
That reminds me of this, how like, you know, even with that long stretch of time to make this film, there is no continuity. It's like perfect in their appearances and stuff. So I just thought of that. Plus, I'm watching the Mission Impossible movies, and there's a continuity issue in another movie due to another Tom Cruise film.
Really?
So I just thought that was just funny. You know, Mission Impossible movies, they're kind of fun. There you go. Tom Cruise everywhere this past month for me, I guess.
You were going to call the police.
Well, things change. We have come to another arrangement. And by the way, if the good doctor himself should ever want anything again, anything at all, it needn't be a costume.
Another interesting thing here is that they shot it in England, not in New York, considering the film takes place entirely in New York. There's like B-roll and kind of they went to New York to shoot like with a stand-in, some shots, etc. But they build an entire block of the village.
The head-on shots of Tom Cruise walk the head-on shots.
It's what's it called?
Projection.
He's on a
rear
treadmill.
Projection.
Yeah.
And it looks you can see it. When you know it, you see it. You don't
he's in the
see
cab
it if you don't.
too. The cab too, I think.
It's all projection behind the cab. Yep.
But hey, listen, and I think they built the entire like faux Greenwich Village block at Pinewood Studios because Kubrick was infamous in not wanting to leave, not be too far from home, didn't like to fly.
He was afraid to fly.
He didn't like to fly. So
he went out there for Strangelove, and he never left again. Never came back to the U.S. again.
Man,
he
what a
loved
fear.
he loved the United States. He loved the U.S.
He's from
he
Brooklyn,
missed his home,
which is
yep.
crazy. So
Yep.
he's from New York. Did not shoot the film
No, he's
in
from
New
the
York
Bronx.
City. Was it the Bronx? Okay.
He's from the Bronx.
But yeah, it's just funny how a guy from New York has a movie set in New York, did not shoot it in New York. He has to
afraid
fake
to
New
fly.
York for an entire almost 3-hour long film.
I heard once a long time ago. I've only heard this once, so I don't know how true. I heard once that he had a dream about a plane crash, that he would die in a plane crash, and that was it.
Yeah. I mean, if people have a fear of flying, that's like a known thing. People have that dream, that nightmare all the time. So I get it. I mean, flying's scary. I don't have a fear of flying, but everyone gets a little nervous.
It's
That pit in their
scary.
stomach.
It's a scary thing.
When you think about it, you're way up there and have no control. So I get it. But nonetheless, if you got, that's crazy that even to make a film, I mean, that he had the luxury that they'd move everything for him. It was Kubrick, so.
Tom Cruise even said, he said, people call him a recluse and everything. Oh, well, why? How could you not want to leave? And then Tom Cruise and a lot of other people said, if you've ever been to his home, you would understand.
Like a ranch he
yes.
lived on. It was
they were like, there's no reason to leave. Everything
Yeah.
you could ever want. Like, it's one of the most beautiful places you've ever seen. And everything you need
he's
is there.
buried there.
Yes. Yeah, he's buried in the garden. I know. It's
Fucking crazy. My man never left. He stayed there. He died and stayed there. Listen, I respect it, man. Whatever. Sometimes I don't want to leave home, so I get it.
Yeah.
One other thing that I wrote down here, and Manny, if you have anything else after this, you can add to this. One more thing I want to mention that I thought was really interesting was he wanted to cast Harvey Keitel. Originally,
he did cast Harvey Keitel.
He did cast, yes. Correct. Thanks for correcting me. He cast Harvey Keitel in the role of Zegler, but Harvey Keitel and him didn't get along, and he felt, I think, like something about like the way he didn't like the way Kubrick was directing him. He almost belittled him. He felt like he was putting him down on set.
There's a couple stories.
Yeah, there's a few stories about that. But before you continue, that's when the role went to Sidney Pollack because Harvey Keitel ended up quitting and not wanting to work with Kubrick, which is kind of crazy to think that, Harvey Keitel worked with Scorsese and stuff like that. You'd think he'd want to work with Kubrick, but nope, didn't.
He did.
Didn't happen. But what were you going to say, Manny?
He played Ziegler and they shot a good
why? See, I
portion
didn't know
of it.
that.
Yes.
I didn't know they shot stuff.
Yes, they shot a good portion of his stuff for the film in it. And shooting, there's the most practical thing. The most practical issue was the fact that Harvey Keitel was going to do Finding Graceland.
Okay.
He was scheduled to do that. And shooting was already running long. So, number one, he had to leave to go do Finding Graceland. Shooting was going long. And there was apparently one day where there was a scene where Ziegler was walking through a door, and Kubrick had him do it 68 times.
Oh, goddamn.
And Keitel just said, "You're out of your fucking mind. I've had enough." And he walked off.
I could picture
Okay?
Harvey Keitel
Yes.
just like...
So when,
That's so
100%,
funny. It's like
100%.
Harvey Keitel. Like, I don't know the dude, obviously, but
Yeah.
like you watch his movies and you like watch any, like, being, loving film and stuff, you watch these documentaries where you see like their experiences, especially him, who's worked with like Martin Scorsese so many times, and like how much he loves him, and you watch these documentaries, it's like he seems like just this New York dude who's like, fuck this. I'm
100%. And apparently that's exactly what he said. You're out of your fucking mind. And he walked off. And that was apparently so when Harvey Keitel says he feels disrespected by him, that's what he felt. He felt like, I'm walking through a fucking door. What do you want from me? What more? Tell me what it is you want me to do instead of just having me continually do this. And that, again, that goes back to what I think that Kubrick didn't really know what he wanted until he saw it. Like Malcolm McDowell singing in the rain. They did that for hours, that scene, until he decided, I'm going to do fuck it. And he started singing in the rain.
and that stayed in the movie.
And that's what Kubrick wanted, which means if he had done that on take 4, they would have kept take 4. We would have moved on.
It's similar to like Shelley Duvall in The Shining,
Yes.
where he kind of not tortured her, but he was really aggressive towards her to kind of get the performance out, to pull that kind of
Yes.
fear and just kind of torture out of her to show the audience, like, so it looks authentic, you know, and it
And a lot
sucks,
of people give him shit
you know?
over that, but
Yeah.
even Shelley Duvall through her whole life said it was one of the best experiences she ever had was working with him. She doesn't regret
dude.
any of it.
Yeah.
She loved it. I have one more for you though.
All right.
I don't know if
Let's
you
hear
know
it.
this. It doesn't seem like you know it because I think you would have mentioned it. So Harvey Keitel. Oh, to one final point on Harvey. Like we were saying earlier, the media frenzy around this film when it got out that Harvey Keitel had left and was recast. The rumor started as to why. Okay, Harvey Keitel left. He quit. There was another interview where he claimed that Kubrick fired him, but the fact is Kubrick never fired anybody. You know, very, very rarely did you had to. You know,
I mean, it'd be a big pain in the ass
yes.
to recast
Yeah.
the role.
He didn't
so.
fire anybody. No, he would break people. He'd break an actor, and you're going to do what I'm going to want. You're going to do this or not. But one of the rumors at the time was that Harvey Keitel was fired off the set because he was filming a masturbation scene, and he jerked off and came in Nicole Kidman's hair.
What?
This was a rumor at the time. This is why I say that people were disappointed in the movie. Everybody thought they were getting
never heard of this.
Yes, 100%. You can Google this and look it up.
Oh.
This was a rumor at the time that he had jerked off into Nicole Kidman's hair in a scene. It
And
got
that's
into
why
her
they
hair,
booted him.
and she lost her mind, and she said,
Okay.
"I want him out of here," and Kubrick fired him. That was a rumor. So this is what I say. People thought at the time that they were going to get a porno.
And everyone saw Bad Lieutenant and thought that he became that character behind the scenes.
Exactly.
During the production of Eyes Wide Shut.
So
Oh my God.
the one more thing is that there was another actor who actually left the film as well and shot some scenes and couldn't come back for the reshoots. So she was recast.
Which character?
The what's her name? The daughter of the dead Marion Nathanson.
Okay, the patient that died.
Yes, that
Okay.
was recast. Oh, I forget the actress's name. But that was recast. Originally was Jennifer Jason Leigh.
Oh yeah, I think I did see that. So
Jennifer
there were supposed
Jason-
to be two other kind of big time actors
Yes.
in this film, which is interesting because those roles kind of bookend the movie, especially Ziegler. He kind of bookends the film. So it's weird how they couldn't. Obviously, Harvey Keitel felt disrespected, etc. But he could have easily shot. Like those were bookended. Like that character's bookends the entire movie. So you would think like, oh, it wouldn't be that big of a deal to kind of have him be a part of this and come back reshoots as well. But I guess
And she's only in one scene.
Yeah, she's only in the one.
So what reshoots did you need? It's just a matter of, again,
timing.
When Kubrick found what he wanted, they had to go back and change something. I guarantee it. So yeah, they did that, and when they called back for reshoots, she couldn't come back for the reshoots because she was shooting Existence.
Which is another great movie.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, I didn't
So that's
not
why I
know
say
that
if you-
she was supposed to be in it.
Yeah,
so,
I do. I
crazy.
figured you would have mentioned Jennifer Jason Leigh. That's one I don't think you would have
I
missed.
think I might have seen that, but yeah, I think like Harvey Keitel just stood out to me.
Harvey Keitel and his splooge, right?
I missed the jerking off story though, so that was a good piece of insight there. Okay, yeah, I'm telling you,
I remember hearing that too.
Yeah, that's
it
fucking
was
wild.
something I forgot about it until I heard it on another. Said I would listen to some podcasts just for some
yeah.
Because again, I remember when the movie came out as okay, I need to remember the things, and there was one show that I listened to that specifically talked about the marketing of the film, and I'm like, oh, I remember that poster, I remember that interview, I remember seeing, because I was actually upset that I did not see it in theaters when it came out.
Let's say, for example, you have some gorgeous woman standing in your office, naked, and you're feeling her fucking tits. Now, what I want to know, what are you really thinking about when you're squeezing them?
So Eyes Wide Shut follows a married couple, Bill, Tom Cruise, and Alice, Nicole Kidman, who appear to be having a very normal and happy relationship. Bill is a successful doctor, and Alice is between jobs from what I remember.
She's an unemployed
Yeah.
art gallery manager.
And she's not working right now, so she's looking for some opportunities.
Yeah,
so what she mostly does is an stay-at-home mom to their young daughter. Sort of mundane stuff, very basic kind of, doing well. They're doing well. They've got a really nice apartment, like in West Central Park, by Central Park up there on the west side or whatever. One night, the couple go out to a Christmas party thrown by a patient of Bill's, Mr. Ziegler, Sidney Pollack. While at the party, Bill runs into a college friend of his, Nick Nightingale, who is a pianist. And
that's what his family calls him.
Yes, exactly. That's the joke. And he's playing piano with the band at this party.
And that is played by Todd Field.
Yes, Todd Field, who's a filmmaker, right?
Todd Field, who's a director, who directed Tar.
Yeah, I was about to say, which is another Academy Award-winning film.
Tar with what's her name?
Kate Blanchett.
Kate Blanchett.
Yeah.
About who's a composer.
Yeah, which is interesting, right? How that worked out.
Which is really funny because Kate Blanchett is in Eyes Wide Shut.
Yes, very brief and not even credited, which is interesting. Nope. Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yes, I figured we would.
So yeah, Nick Nightingale, the two of them catch up. They haven't seen each other in like a decade. And Bill is then approached by two models. So you've got two good-looking models who begin hitting on him before he's interrupted because Mr. Ziegler is requesting his help. So Mr. Ziegler's got this young woman. He's a married man, so he's having an affair behind his wife's back in a room upstairs. I think it's the bathroom. Yeah. And this young woman, Mandy, thank you, Manny, is having a drug overdose. Mm-hmm. So he needs Bill's help to kind of just snap her out of it, make sure she doesn't fucking die on him, because that's the last thing this man needs. That's the last thing Ziegler needs. So now, while Bill's attending to Mandy, Alice is being seduced by a guest at this party. It's like this Hungarian guy. The dude sounds like Dracula when he's talking. He almost looks like Dracula. But Alice is dancing with him, being seduced by him. The two are kind of...
His name, Sander Zavost.
I did not write that down because I was going to butcher that. So I didn't even bother.
Sander Zavost.
I didn't even bother
when he
doing
says
that.
it in the movie, you're like, what the fuck did he just say?
He's a Hungarian guy.
Yep. Sander Zavost.
Very charismatic, charming.
Yep. He is.
The two of them are dancing very close.
He
like
has
I'm talking.
What's his name? Love at First Bite actor. What's his name?
Oh, I know who you're talking about. I forget.
Reminds me of him.
Very kind of Dracula-esque.
Yes.
Kind of, this dude could have played like a vampire. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they're getting very heated. I mean, like almost lip to lip when they're dancing. His
real name is Sky Dumont.
There you go. I mean, that's
Sky.
a cool name. That's a cool
fucking name.
So yeah, they're kind of they're basically humping on the dance floor in this scene.
She is very drunk.
Yeah, she is very drunk. And he obviously wants to sleep with her. Like, he's trying his best to, like, crack that whip. He's trying to bump uglies with her.
Yep.
So she kind of turns him down because she's obviously a married woman and has had a lot of drinks.
She says it like 4 times to him, and this fucking guy does not give up.
He does not give a shit that she's married and that her husband is in the same building.
Right there. We're standing right there a minute ago.
Yes. But it plays into the overall plot. So the following night, Bill and Alice, they're hanging out in their apartment, smoking a doobie, smoking a joint, smoking an L. I have to say all the names.
The same night.
Is it the same night?
This is after. This is like 2:00 in the morning. Yeah.
So regardless, they're smoking a joint. They're in their apartment, and they start talking about each other's experiences at Ziegler's party, and kind of they start to accuse each other. Like, she's saying, "Oh, I saw those two little models. They wanted to, have sex with you. You're a doctor when you're feeling up a girl, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "I'm just examining them." She starts accusing him of infidelity and having kind of bad thoughts with other women. And she starts kind of, the two of them have a conversation where he's accusing her, she's accusing him. There's a lot of jealousy back and forth. And he explains to her that men, because she had the Hungarian guy dancing with her, flirting with her, are prone to want to just sleep with women and not give a shit, and that women are naturally faithful. This pisses her off. This is where she draws the line because she basically tells him, like, look, you obviously don't know shit about women if you think women are this, these faithful creatures, and that just because you say you love me doesn't mean you don't want to have an affair with other women. Mm-hmm. It gets very intense, and I will say it's an excellent scene. Like, Nicole Kidman is a fucking savage in this. She starts laughing at him. She's
phenomenal.
They both are. He's great too because he looks like a fucking deer in headlights, like a fucking idiot, and it plays into the character. And a lot of it is just jealousy. It becomes an argument about jealousy and how he views women and him being completely wrong because Alice finally owns up to something, and she explains to him, I think the year prior, they were somewhere on vacation, the family, and she saw this naval officer, and she starts to fantasize while she was with Bill. So like while they were having sex, she starts to fantasize about this naval officer, sleeping with him, and even considered leaving her life, leaving both of her daughter and Bill for him, for this random man. Yeah, in the moment.
Yeah, they were in a hotel. I do want to correct you. You were right. It is the next night because I forgot.
Okay.
There's the scene after the party. The next morning, he goes to work and she's home.
Sworn it was like the next day.
You're right. I completely forgot about that.
They let some time. They let it marinate a little bit there in between.
Yeah, it is the next night because it actually connects to what she's saying in this argument.
Yeah,
because she says when the doctors are having their little titties squeezed because there's a scene where you see him as a doctor and there's a woman. Yeah, she's topless and he's checking her because he's a doctor. So that connects to what she was saying. But she says that they were somewhere. And they were in a hotel, and there was a naval officer who happened to walk through the lobby.
She just saw him, and that was it.
Yes, she said, and he just glanced and looked at her, and she said, in that glance, just the looking at him, she said, at this moment right now, if he wanted me, I would leave.
She would leave everything behind.
I would leave everything behind for him after one look.
Yeah. It's kind of fucked up when you think about it because she has like this 7-year-old daughter or something, his little daughter. So Bill's in shock. He legitimately, when you look at Tom Cruise in this scene, he is shocked at what he's hearing from his wife, from Alice. So it just so happens that at that very moment, he gets a phone call from a patient of his whose father died, the one that you mentioned, that Jennifer Jason Leigh was originally going to play. Her father died, and Bill heads out. He goes over there.
Her father was a patient of his, so he's going to go console.
Just to say, my condolences and all this. And because I want to speed things up because I know we have a lot to say here. So I'm not going to go into every nook and cranny. Long story short, that the daughter of that patient makes a move on him. He's shocked by that as well. The timing of this because of what just happened with Alice. She
says to him the same thing that Alice says to her.
Yeah, and that kind of triggers him, which is a great piece of dialogue. Yeah.
She says, I've always loved you. I don't want to get she's about to get married and they're going to move to England, I think. Yeah, they're going to move somewhere together. And he's like, oh, that's wonderful. That's great to hear. And she leans forward and kisses him. And she says, I love you. I love you so much. Oh, I don't want to marry him. I want to be with you. I would leave my whole life for you. I'll leave it. So what they just had this argument where where Alice gets upset because he minimizes women's thinking and their loins, their lust. Women just don't think that way. And then his wife explains, no, they don't.
You don't know shit.
She says, if you men only knew.
Yeah, what you don't know anything.
Yes. And that puts him into almost like a septic shock.
And it's then kind of crazy. Yeah, every scene he's in, he's just shocked. He's just like dumbfounded.
And then he finds a way out. He finds a way to get out of this argument. And I can leave. Legitimately, I can leave. And then he goes there, and this woman does it to him. And it's another his entire world view of how he sees
this is the switch
opposite sex
right here.
Yes, of how he sees women and how the world operates just suddenly flips on its head. Because this is a woman I really don't know you very long, but he's been this guy's doctor for years. So to some extent, yes, he's known her for years. We've never had a conversation other than your father before this today, But she just proved to him what Alice just said, that just a look could be enough from the right person. She
doesn't need to know anything about him to know that she wants to be with him, and that's it.
And that made everything Alice said even more real.
And this is where the movie flips. That right there, like I said, the switch that kind of is turned on, the bulb that goes off in Bill's head, because this is where sort of his journey, I call it in my notes, his journey with infidelity starts to go very wrong. He almost wants to get revenge on Alice in a way, like, okay, if she thought this, one way of seeing it. It's like him, again, like I said, his journey with infidelity going really wrong. It's like, all right, I want to kind of feel better about myself, so I'm going to go try to fuck around tonight because I want to kind of get back at her and feel better about myself. It's an insecurity thing, the way I took it with him.
I can agree with the insecurity.
Yeah.
I think that
it's like jealousy, insecurity.
Yeah, because again, the argument started about him never being jealous of her, and then him realizing how she really sees things and what's happening in her head. And I think that the insecurity is 100%. I don't know so much if it's I think for the first time he's feeling jealousy.
Yeah, because she says that. There's a line of dialogue where Bill tells Alice, why am I never jealous? Because I love you. You're the mother of my child. I have no reason to be jealous. Yeah. And this is the first time in his however long he's been with her, even though he has a family with her, where the jealousy hits him, and it hits him hard.
Yeah. And you know what? I can relate to that. I don't feel I'm not a jealous person like that.
No, I'm the same way.
But there are moments. There are total moments where I feel it. Like you know your wife. You know it sometimes, and sometimes you look at her like, she thinks that dude is hot. I fucking know it. I can tell she thinks he's hot. But son of a bitch.
That's the genius of this movie. Is that the way that you could say a wife looks at another person and goes, they're hot, you can also look at someone else, even though you're married, and still be like, that's a hottie right there.
And that's what I think it is that for the first time, he's seeing that. Like, he's always been, the film is called Eyes Wide Shut. Okay. And that is a term for people who aren't aware, because I even remember at the time, people were like, what the fuck does that mean? Eyes wide shut. What does that mean? It's a term for going through life and not seeing reality, not understanding. You live.
He's
blind.
Your life. You're blind to everything.
You're blind to the most obvious things that are in front of you, because not out of sheer ignorance, but simply because what is happening in front of you does not align with your personal worldview. So you ignore it and hope it just goes away. And that's how he's always gone through life, is he sees the world a certain way, and everything that contradicts this is just blinders. I'm going to have blinders and go through this. And now Alice smacks him upside the head with it. You can't ignore this anymore.
Open now. Yeah.
You can't ignore this anymore. Cut the bullshit. You understand that people don't just marry one person and then turn their eyes off to the whole world. You can't expect that. You can't think that. And if you do, you are dead wrong.
Exactly. I mean, that's literally the plot of this film.
Yes.
That's the entire plot until it gets a little, until that's the plot of the movie with kind of
is him being awakened to the world around him.
And just seeing these other characters that are entering his life, a lot of it has to do with sexuality and stuff. But
is another film I would compare this to?
What?
After Hours.
Oh, which is one of my favorite movies of all time.
I think that's his best movie.
Yeah, I would agree.
That is his best movie.
And honestly,
but this is just like that.
Griffin
Dunn is exposed to a world that he did not know existed, and
here's something funny about that. And I've compared Eyes Wide Shut to After Hours. It is one man trying to go out and have a good time, and it goes horribly wrong. And that's what I love about it. It's sort of like a slice of life type of movie, but in both cases, and they're both different types of films.
We're going to cover that one day because I have a lot to say on that movie, so I'm going to just not.
Yeah, I'm going to stay quiet too because I love After Hours as well.
It is his best movie, and I think what matched his second best movie is Bringing Out the Dead, which I think goes well. I think they're in the same world.
I have to revisit that film. It's been a long time.
I think those two exist in the same world. One is New York, one is L.A.
Yeah, and to move forward here because we'll stay stuck here, and then we can just dive into different aspects of the film. But yeah, his evening journey with infidelity going very wrong involves prostitutes, an eccentric costume store owner who has a very kind of sexually active young daughter who he prostitutes as well. It's insinuated the death of a model. And the cherry on top, and kind of the worst thing to happen to him in this evening that he was trying to go out and get his rocks off, he ends up at a private masquerade. This is how I have it worded: a private masquerade orgy party by some sort of secret society in a mansion out in Long Island. That may or may not be fucking Long Island. That may or may not be hosted by a group of occultists or Satanists or something. Basically, he ended up at the wrong party. He should not have been there. Surprise, surprise. This sex cult, which is what I'll call them here for now, didn't appreciate Bill finding out about their party and inviting himself, thanks to his old pal that we mentioned earlier, Nick Nightingale, this mysterious group telling him to stay away and not look into it anymore. Spoiler alert, if you're still with us here. That's exactly what Bill does, and things don't go great for him the rest of the film, and we'll get into the ending in a few. But in a nutshell, that is the plot of Eyes Wide Shut. These are the things that sort of happened to Bill, his adventure in trying to feel better about himself, and this jealousy and this new thing he found out about his wife's fantasy. And things don't work out for Bill.
I assure you, sex is the last thing on this fucking hypothetical woman patient's mind.
And we didn't really talk about like kind of the Christmas aspect of this. And I know there's some stuff you want, we're picking this movie because it's a dark Christmas film, and there's a lot of Christmas decorations in it. Every shot has a Christmas tree in it, Christmas lights in it. Throughout the movie, there's no Christmas music until the very end. I don't know, you've noticed that too,
in the
right?
Toy Story.
The very end of the film. So that's my defense in why we chose this for December. It is a Christmas film. I will say, I will die on that hill. This is a Christmas movie. Like how people fight about Die Hard not being a Christmas film, that too is a Christmas movie. Go to hell, people.
So is Lethal Weapon.
So is Lethal Weapon. So is Eyes Wide Shut. Very Christmassy. All that it's missing is a Santa Claus and maybe some snow. But outside of that, it oozes. Even when he goes into the cafes, there's Christmas lights and decorations everywhere. So I just wanted to mention that here because as far as plot goes, Christmas doesn't really play into what happens to Bill. It just takes place during the holidays. Oh, but Manny, something we have to sit on here and talk about Bill's, him going to the party. I feel like this is going to be a good chunk. I think this is what most people
This is the scene that people remember from the movie. Everybody says, well, the rest of it was kind of boring, but this was cool, but I do not agree at all.
I don't agree with that. It is probably, it's the major set piece of the movie, Bill going and buying going to the costume shop, meeting the eccentric costume shop owner, buying the creepy mask and the cloak and all that, and then taking a cab out to the party. And then there's where he witnesses this ritual, which I'm sure you have more information than I do on this, and kind of the backwards. The music that's played is reverse. What's the name of that song? Do you have it? I'm shocked.
Masquerade Ball, I think.
And it's a priest.
Yes, it's a
ritual.
It's a prayer. Yeah,
but it's in reverse which makes it eerie. This is technically not a horror film, but I will say I think it is too.
Totally.
This is, and I have a funny story. This is one of the creepiest scenes. Even the shots and it's one of my favorite, obviously, for obvious reasons, it is one of my favorite scenes in the film. When you see Bill enter wearing the mask and all you see are people's eyes, you don't get any expressions. You see no one's face. Even when they confront him, like, you're not supposed to be here. It is some of the eeriest, most beautiful shots. I think they're like gorgeous looking shots. Like just him standing there in this mansion looking at the ritual and all these naked women around this priest character with all red, swinging. I forget what it's called. I'm sure you know what it is. What's the name of the thing that you swing with the smoke coming out of it? Priest.
Oh, I know. I actually don't know the name.
I'm
of it.
shocked
It's
you
an
don't know.
incense burner.
I'm shocked
it's
you
an
don't know what
incense
that's
burner.
called.
I do not. I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
That entire scene, just the way it plays out with you are just as confused. And I think that's what Stanley Kubrick was just genius with this scene. You are just as confused as Bill. As he's like how he thinks he's getting away with murder and can walk around and talk to these women and women want to sleep with him. One of them goes up to him and he's like talking to him until the one masked woman tells him you're in danger and should not be here. And that's where it's like, all right, he's fucked. Like, Bill is screwed. And I just love the scene, dude. The music, just the way, that kind of classic Kubrick shot following the character through all the rooms really wide. It's so good, dude. And it's what everyone remembers about the movie. And I know you probably love this scene too.
I do.
It's
yeah. Okay. So what you were asking before, the name of the piece was originally called Backwards Priests. Mm-hmm. That's what her composition is called.
It's creepy.
And then, yes. And then inside the film, the reworking of it that Kubrick did is called Masked Ball. And then based on that, he literally said to her, and as I said, I had this in my notes, but it says it's written very succinctly right here on Wikipedia, that he called her and asked if she had anything else weird like that. And she wrote another 20-something minutes of music for him, and that ended up in the film.
dude.
So he did tell her. So it was composed after his death, but she was already told by him to do more, and then the rest of the stuff was thing. But the incense burner is just called the censer.
Oh, okay. I knew there was a technical term for
it's
it.
just
I had no idea.
Like censer.
I just remember going to see Ghost one year and they played that song. They played this song. This was like Ghost in their infancy when they first started.
Oh, yes.
The band Ghost, if you're not familiar. But I remember going to see them and that song, the main chant plays and then he comes out holding one. Obviously, Eyes Wide Shut was a big inspiration for that band. Clearly. But dude, it's the main set piece of the film. It's so good. I honestly, right before we jumped on, rewatched that entire scene, and I'm like, this scene's so good. It's just it's when they tell him what's the password, Fidelio, right? Fidelio, and he
means fidelity.
Fidelity. Which is funny because it plays into the whole reason why he wanted to go there to be, he wanted infidelity. And just kind of the whole setup and the build up to it is so well crafted. Him going to the prostitute, not sleeping with her because his wife calls him, going to Nick Nightingale's nightclub, getting the password, just like the way the storytelling it plays out, the build up to that scene. And then how it just goes completely bleak for him in the second half of the film. Because it's literally at the hour point. Yep. It's in the middle of the movie that this happens. So to me, that's just really well-crafted filmmaking and storytelling. And that's it's sick. Yeah. Is there anything you want to add about the scene? I'm shocked you don't have more to add about it, just because it's a very Manny scene.
It is.
Just knowing you.
There's a lot of stuff about this scene that is just bullshit that people say about it. Mm-hmm. Like you know, there's that, oh, that he was trying to tell about the sex cults, and he was trying to tell
They always
messages
do
and all
that with him. Yeah.
It's nonsense. It's
I
total
agree.
bullshit. It's bullshit, you know, because the fact is, this entire orgy scene was originally, he wrote it completely differently. Completely differently. You know, the orgy itself wasn't going to have any actual sex in it. He spent 8 months. This is pre-production. For 8 months, there was a dance troupe that was all cast, and they were going to be the ones in the masks. Now they say, now you see that how Stanley Kubrick personally chose all the masks. No, he actually had a collection of those masks. Most of them were just his.
I mean,
He
there's got to be at least 80 to 100 people in that scene. Extras.
Yes, there are, but
Yeah.
but he didn't choose them all individually. He had a collection of these types of masks. He liked those masks, and he had a collection of, you know, a dozen or so. So when he went to the the costume designer and the set and all them, he showed, this is what I have. We're going to use these, and find me more. And that's basically what they did. They just went and found more that matched what he already had. The same style, the look, the color, the shape, everything, you know? But I think he said that he wanted them to be looking like onlookers because Tom Cruise's mask is very blank. It almost looks like his face. Like, it doesn't look like he's wearing a mask.
I said it before. It's really creepy. Look, there's like the shot of him just standing, watching on. There is just something unsettling about it.
Yeah.
And I think it's the way it was shot, the music, etc. So, and the mask, obviously.
And if you look at it, his mask, again, it's almost expressionless.
I want to buy that mask so bad. It's $150.
Yeah, it's very popular at the time. It was in everybody had that mask at Halloween parties later on. You know, at that time, that mask was huge. But yeah, that was a custom mask made for that. And the others were things that they sourced and found. They just found like really crazy, outrageous designs. And all the masks have some sort of expression on their face, whether it's horrified or scared or, you know what I mean? Except for his. That they did that was the one that was done on purpose so that he stood out from the crowd.
He's the only one wearing that mask. Everyone else, there's some duplicates. You can tell there's some people wearing the same face.
He's the only one. He's got that one mask. Well, that mask was made for him.
That's probably the one mask Stanley Kubrick was like, that's the one that Tom Cruise, like Bill has to wear when he enters the.
I think the
shore of it.
I think I don't think he came up with that either. I think that was the costume designer as well.
I'm sure, but they made sure to make it unique where it stands
was
out.
Unique. Yes,
you know?
It was unique. There was
if you
a
think about it, he got it from some random costume store, and this is a cult, so they probably kind of got them all from the same place.
Yeah, the mask itself was made. There was a model that they cast his face and they created them. And while they were shooting, Tom Cruise complained a lot about how uncomfortable it was, and Stanley Kubrick eventually called the woman who made it and said, Can we have the same mask remade but cast Tom Cruise's face? And the woman who was made the mask suddenly shit a brick because she was like, "Oh my God, I have to cast Tom Cruise's face." And this was about to be like the most nerve-wracking moment of her life that she has to do a life cast on Tom Cruise so that this mask fits properly. And she was prepping for it and everything. And then Kubrick called her again and said, "Don't worry, it's fine. Never mind, we're not going to have to do that." And while she was looking forward to it, she breathed a sigh of relief, like, "Oh, thank God, I'm not going to have to go through that." But she was also kind of disappointed, like, "I'm not going to get to meet Tom Cruise now."
I mean, it's so great, man.
So that was a custom mask, and that's why I say. So anyway, back to what I was saying earlier. All of this, the thing itself. So for 8 months, they had a dance troupe. Okay, and they were all dancers, and they had done an interpretive dance. And that's what the orgy scene was going to be. It was going to be this very dreamlike thing of the camera kind of floating through them and everybody in these weird motions, and it was going to be music on top. It was very dreamy, lots of overlays and lots of this and that, you know? And as they got closer, he just kept changing what he wanted to add. Well, let's try this, and let's try this, and let's try that. And by the time they got to shooting it, it was, well, we're going to have these sex scenes, and a lot of dancers quit because that's not what we signed up for. I'm not doing that. And they ended up having to recast a lot of the dancers. and all this is why that whole.
I mean, there's not a
orgy-
lot of dancing. They're just kind of standing
exactly.
there and
Precisely.
they just move around, and that's basically it. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's how different the original thing. And they spent 8 months making this, and none of it is in the movie.
I mean, it works to me. That would
It-
if
no,
there
it
was
works fine.
dancing, it would have pulled you out. In my opinion, I think it would have pulled
was
you
gonna
out
be
of
a
the scene a
completely
bit.
different scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the
There
fact
was-
that they're all just like, it's very ritualistic. Like
Yes.
they dance. The women that are naked are walking slow, and they're almost being treated as like, well, not even almost. They are being treated as objects. Everyone is sort of like an object. Specifically, the women, they're walking around naked, and men are just having sex with them, etc.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of when you watch this scene, and it's about, I'd say, about a 15-minute long piece of the movie.
Approximately.
There's a lot, and I guess why people look way too into it, kind of like what they did with The Shining and kind of some of the visual cues. There is a lot of like weird positioning of people where it's like so symmetrical, where you've got like, there's a scene where there's like two people having sex on a table, and there's a bunch of people just standing around them. It's perfectly still, almost like statues. So it must have been done. It almost feels like you're going on a ride, like when you're going on like a Disneyland ride, and you're walking these rooms.
It's actually
and Tom
a good way
Cruise,
to describe it.
Yeah,
That's how they shot it, actually. They had,
which makes sense.
yeah.
It's like a fucked up, perverted Disneyland ride.
They shot it. The cinematographer actually had laser lights attached to the bottom of the camera, and there were points where he had to, with the Steadicam operator, had to hit these points. He went to this spot, and then he went, and it just went to, there were laser lights hanging from it, and they actually had a pendulum hanging off of the camera as well, so that he would stay still. So the camera, so that the pendulum didn't swing too much. So the Steadicam operator had to keep it nice and smooth.
I mean,
so
that's really fucking smooth.
That's how they shot it. He had laser lights for precision, so they got the exact. So he would go over to the exact spot, and he kept the speed in a certain way so that the pendulum didn't move too much. If the pendulum swung too much, then you pulled the camera too quickly. Yes.
I could see that. I mean, again, it's kind of, they did something similar in The Shining, where you're following the characters down the halls. You can tell it's a Kubrick maneuver that he does.
And it's funny, the cinematographer, and again, this is another, it goes back to where I say he wasn't a perfectionist. He just wasn't quite sure what he wanted until he saw it.
He was figuring it out on set.
He was figuring it out. So there was a scene, I read a thing where with the cinematographer, again, with the laser lights, he had the laser, and Kubrick just kept telling him, "You're not hitting the mark. You're not hitting the mark. You're not hitting the mark." And he's looking down, and he's like, he's on the mark. Like, he hit it exactly. This is where the lasers, everything's lined up. It's perfect. And Kubrick kept telling me, look, and Tom Cruise whispered to him, he's like, "That just means move the camera." Which means after all that setup and the laser lights and the setup and everything, Kubrick still didn't want that shot.
Yeah, he still was just figuring it out.
Exactly. That's why he wasn't that much of a perfectionist. He was just looking for something that he wasn't sure what it was.
I guess he didn't know what he wanted until he was there, and the actors were blocked, and everybody
he wanted to feel it out. Sidney Pollack said that in the interviews that when he talked to him. He said the same thing. He's like, he felt,
and he's a director too, so he would know. So it makes sense.
Kubrick just wanted to feel his way through the scenes, and okay, well, we marked this mark and we did this. Nope, it's not right. Well, that's the mark you put there. Well, the fucking mark is wrong, But that the cinematographer said Tom Cruise literally whispered to him, I think his name was John or Jim or something. He's like, "Jim, that means just move the camera. Like, don't even argue with him. Just move the damn camera till he says there it is, and then we'll move the mark."
Okay, Bill, let's cut the bullshit, all right? You've been way out of your depth for the last 24 hours. You want to know what kind of a charade? I'll tell you exactly what kind. That whole play-acted, take-me, phony sacrifice that you've been jerking yourself off with had absolutely nothing to do with her real death. Nothing happened to her after you left that party that hadn't happened to her before. She got her brains fucked out. Period.
There's a couple of other things I have in my notes here that I want to point out that I just think are like interesting visual choices and in the story as well that I noticed, and I've watched this movie so many times, but some of the exterior, I noticed a lot of the shots, the exterior windows are blue and there's a lot of red for clothing and set decoration and then blue for the windows and exteriors. Not even exteriors as in when like Tom Cruise is walking down the street, but like whenever they're indoors, you see some red. I mean, you see some blue and then red on certain things. Not all the time, but in certain sets, you notice it in the windows. And I just, whatever it means, I just like the way it looks. I think it just looks pretty and like it was smart. The DP and whoever lit everything, they did a great job just kind of with the way it looks, especially the conversation between Bill and Alice when they're having the infidelity, jealousy conversation and smoking the joint. The bathroom or whatever that closet is red. I mean, blue, bright blue. And then everything is kind of warm on the inside. I just love the look of the movie in general. Obviously, the priest in the ritual scene is all red. Everything's red around him. And he stands out as well. Another small detail I noticed that I really like, and I don't know, I've never noticed, again, I haven't watched any videos or listened to any other podcasts talking about this movie, but one small detail that I like is the entire film, he never takes off his wedding band. No. He's trying to bang and have sex with people, never takes it off. Yeah. And that had to have been done on purpose. You hear about men, and some of us might know some people like that, that when they go out to do their thing and hang out,
stick it in their pocket.
They take off their wedding band, stick it in their pocket because they know they don't want to appear like they're a married man or woman. Women do it too. And they want to do their thing. And obviously, if you're trying to meet people and you see a wedding band, sometimes that's a turn off from some people don't give a shit, but for the most part, most people are like, all right, no, that's a married person. I'm not going to open up that can of worms. But I do like that in the movie, when he's with the prostitute, when he's at the party, whenever he's with people, he's always wearing his wedding band. And I thought that was just an interesting detail. I don't know if I'm overthinking it or if that was a detail. He never goes
as far as, because as much as he's kind of trying to get laid, part of him doesn't actually want to. Exactly. He just wants to like get to it. He wants to feel like he could.
It's like when he's with the prostitute. She calls him, "When are you coming home?" She's just sitting there
and
eating
he's like
cookies and watching TV, and he pays the prostitute, does nothing with her, and then leaves. Yeah. So I just like that detail that he never. You watch most movies, you'd expect him to be like, all right, I'm going to this party that's an orgy.
Because he doesn't have he doesn't know that, he doesn't really know what
Well, he doesn't know that, but the prostitute and stuff like that, he doesn't ever take it off.
It's not a conscious thing because it's something that means you're planning on doing that. He's just kind of going with, I think that if Alice hadn't interrupted him, he might have actually slept with the prostitute. Probably. If he hadn't got caught, he might have tried to get in with one of those. He might have. But you don't know for sure, but pulling off the wedding ring is an act of deliberation. Like you do that on purpose. He's had this wedding ring on for so long, he doesn't even notice it.
He doesn't realize it. Exactly.
Yeah. It's just part of his hand.
It's not something he wants to do. And it goes back to their conversation that they have where he just found this information out about Alice. So his way to kind of feel better about himself is to
whether he has a ring on his hand or not does not change how he feels about his wife.
Exactly.
The ring is just a thing. So I think that a lot of people, the people who do that sort of thing, where they go out, they take it off, they're equating their marriage with this ring. It's almost like they're putting a physical connection to it. Like I have a wedding ring on, I take it on, I take it off. That does not change
whether you're married or not. Yeah.
Whether it doesn't change how I feel about my wife. It doesn't change my intentions on the status of our relationship either. It's just a ring.
Some people
see it. Yes, if they don't have that ring, well, then I'm a different person. No. But I mean, that's how some people live their life. Fine.
But I just like that detail because it shows how
I never considered that.
It shows how spur of the moment, and that's why I joked when I did the breakdown that this is Bill's kind of failure and his terrible journey at infidelity, because he's failing right from the top by showing that he's a married man, and even when he's with the prostitute, she says it. Oh, is that Miss? I forget I didn't write down Bill's last name, the family's last name, but
Hartford.
There you go. Is that Miss Hartford? Hartford?
Harford?
Around there. Yeah.
Yeah, Harford, no T.
Harford. Yeah. So Harford, like, is that Miss or whatever, Harford?
Yeah.
And he goes, yes. Like he knows, he got caught. Like he's married. So I just like that detail. That's just something I noticed watching it this last time, that he keeps it on the entire film. It's gold. You see it. Like he is a married man who is doing a terrible job at trying to have sex with someone else and feel better about himself.
Another part of it, which is something which kind of connects to that too. Every woman that he has any sort of sexual, anything with.
Sexual desire.
No. Interaction.
Yeah.
Any sort of interaction with that could be, that is within the sexual realm.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of them resembles Nicole Kidman.
Yeah.
Everyone
cast people that look similar.
She is a strawberry blonde, Nicole Kidman, and every woman in this in this film is either red or blonde hair. And and if you look at Nicole Kidman, just the way they lit her and everything, there in the beginning of the movie, she's very blonde. By the end of the movie, that final scene where they're sitting, her hair is almost red.
Yeah,
because she's a strawberry blonde. But Domino's roommate, Lily Sobieski, the woman whose father's dead,
Mandy.
the woman Mandy. The woman in the party who saves him. They're all red strawberry blondes, all of them. They all look like her. Even so, the woman who confesses her love to, like, she's red, she's got red hair, and her husband, her fiance, looks like Tom Cruise too.
Yeah, it's just British. I think that's the only difference.
Yeah, they're both British, but he looks like Tom Cruise as well. And what's funny is that this is the Tom Cruise. He's taller than her, and Tom Cruise,
Yeah.
So that's almost another symbol of him being inadequate for this woman, because she has another guy who looks just like him, but he's even taller.
Yeah.
Another symbol of inadequacy. And this goes throughout the entire film, where every woman that he comes across, he is the guy at the orgy. He's the guy that
it's like a reminder. It's a reminder of his life that he's trying to kind of shit on right now.
And it shows how he comes up short. He's the guy who can't even get laid at the orgy.
Yeah, which is wild.
That's
the
what he is.
Swinger party, he can't even get laid.
And it's Tom fucking Cruise.
I know, who's like a stud.
And it's Tom Cruise, yes, who could have any woman that he chooses.
It's crazy.
He's the guy who can't get laid at the orgy. You know? And that's what the film is all about. A guy, there's actually one more little thing, was the writer. One of the writers who said that the writer of the film felt that Stanley Kubrick, they did this story, again, it's about the sexual revolution of the 60s, and they always felt that they were too old for it. Like they missed the orgy. They were too old for the orgy. And what was the exact, I had an exact quote where he said something, Terry Southern felt that they were too old for it. Frederick Raphael, who co-wrote this screenplay with Kubrick, said, like a lot of people, we all felt we were both born too early or too late for the orgy, and this is a movie about a guy who's literally late for the orgy.
Mm-hmm. Even he's bad at orgies.
Yes.
So before we kind of dive into the ending, one thing we mentioned, and we kind of didn't even go back to it, but Mandy, the woman, or it's insinuated the woman that helps him kind of escape the secret
Mandy.
Society. It's not Mandy, but
no, it's not.
It's the model.
It's a model, but
it's a model. Yeah.
He tells him that it's her. When he says
he lies. That's why I was going to get into the ending before we get into the ending.
Yeah, Tom Cruise thinks it's her, and Ziegler lets him think it's her.
Lets him in, yeah. So what I wanted to mention was that character at the party, the woman that helps him kind of escape the orgy party after he's caught, and everyone tells him,
I will give myself for him.
Yes, that's Kate Blanchett's voice. That's Kate Blanchett.
Yep.
She went back. They had her ADR all the dialogue, because I think the original actress didn't sound convincing as an American. I think she had a really thick.
She was a model. She couldn't do a.
Yeah.
She was a model she was a runway model. So she had the walk and she had all that, but she had a very thick accent. She couldn't do a good American accent. So
I just wanted to mention that because we teased Kate Blanchett and never said what role.
Yep. I
she
figured we'd
plays.
get back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And what's funny too is that was recorded after Kubrick's death as well.
Yeah, I think Tom Cruise had he told them, like, hey, have her do it. Like they were friends. Nicole Kidman and him were friends with her, so they were like, oh, they recommended. So it's funny how Kate Blanchett, who's another like fantastic,
she's in Eyes Wide Shut
actor, is in Eyes Wide Shut for 2 seconds. Her voice is in it. So yeah. On that note, let's dive into what happens at the very end, and we'll close out Eyes Wide Shut here. So at the end of the movie, Bill starts to try to piece the puzzle together. And, he's followed by a mysterious figure. He ends up going to the morgue, which I will say, I love how Bill uses ID as like a cop badge. He's like a detective.
He does.
Every place he goes to.
I'm a doctor.
I'm a doctor. And all these people are like, all right, cool. Like
great, you're a
when
doctor.
When he talks to Alan Cummings at the bellhop or whatever at the hotel, when he tries to get into the morgue, into the hospital, everyone, he just shows his badge and they're like, okay, cool.
The waitress in two different diners, the waitress.
This is obviously a very pre 9/11 film, if you know what I mean. Let anyone in with just a medical ID.
That's it.
So yeah, he's piecing together, trying to find out more information about the secret society orgy party, the death of this model that he hears about. He reads about it in the newspaper.
The death of Mandy. It is Mandy.
The death of Mandy, the woman, and he thinks it's the woman that saved him at the party, like you said. Yes. So Mr. Ziegler, someone on his team, calls Bill. Summons him, basically. And Bill heads over to Mr. Ziegler's house, and Mr. Ziegler explains to Bill that he was at the orgy party. He was at the party, and that he knows that they're trying to intimidate him by any means necessary if he continues to investigate or say anything public.
Yeah, he goes back to the house. He goes to the hotel looking for Nick. He goes to the
it's
morgue.
Obvious
looking
he's
for her.
trying to find out more information.
And Ziegler is like, you need to stop this shit.
This is like the big warning. Like he gets warned a couple times because when he, like you said, he goes back to the house.
This is almost a friend coming to him and like, you don't get it.
You don't know what you're getting yourself into. To the point that Ziegler even tells him like this was all fake. It was a setup. Almost gaslighting Bill, trying to gaslight Bill in a way where it's like, oh, it was all fake. It was all a setup. You don't need to worry too much about it. Just go on with your life. Ziegler comes off as both a friend and almost sinister. It's almost like you can't really tell. And it is a good performance. Sidney Pollack is really good in these scenes because he's also very charismatic. And the way he delivers his lines, it's like you kind of believe him, but there's a veil there. And if he lifts it, there's a dark, sinister situation happening back there. So Bill heads back home. And he finds his missing mask because he loses it, the masquerade mask, sitting on the pillow in his bed next to a sleeping Alice, who he wakes up in tears. Bill explains, basically has a nervous breakdown. Yeah, he has a nervous breakdown at this point and explains to Alice that he's going to tell her everything that's happened the last few days. He's going to be completely open to her, what he was trying to do. And the next morning, they're going to go Christmas shopping with their daughter. And Bill and Alice are just having a conversation about what are the next steps in their relationship? How are they going to move past this? Yeah, how are they going to move past this and just kind of live life as husband and wife? And then Alice has, what a great way to end the movie. They have to do something as quickly as possible to fix this. And she just says the word, fuck. And then cut to the end credits and it rolls from there.
She basically decides we're gonna live Eyes Wide Shut. We're just gonna pretend it didn't happen and we're gonna move on with our life because the entirety of our life cannot be defined by one night. Even though this night literally changed everything about how they see everything. She basically says, no, we can't be defined by this one evening. We can't let that change everything. So we're just gonna go back to continuing and pretending that none of this ever happened. We'll go back and make it all normal again.
Yeah, it's funny too because the movie opens with them having sex and she's naked and he's naked.
We don't know if they have sex.
Well, we don't know if they have sex, but they're being intimate with each other.
There's
you
no
never see
point
them have sex.
That says they had sex. They're just naked.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of did they have sex or not? We don't know.
Yeah, it might be the whole
because
thing
the
might be
way
an
she-
allegory for like
Yeah.
you
Well,
know, issues of relationship and stuff.
The
yeah.
way she says we need to fuck as soon as possible, it's almost like they haven't in a long time.
yeah.
You know, that almost implies it's been like we haven't had sex in a long time.
Yeah.
You know, we need to do this as quickly as possible, and that'll get us back to. It's just another thing that they're gonna. Here's another thing. Great. Yep. No, look, we have good sex. We have good sex. Our relationship is good. It's just another veil that they put down in front, you know, and that feeling, that the way she says that makes it feel like, well, if we were having sex more often, we just wouldn't feel this way. And it's like, that's not true.
No.
You know, but it's just another front.
It's going to mask the issues that they have.
Yep. That is the mask.
Yeah.
Is by pretending.
It's great, dude. It's a great ending. I always got a kick out of that. That's literally the last word in the movie. They have to fuck in order to try to save their marriage. Any closing thoughts? Any last minute any last things you want to say here, Manny?
I have a lot. There's so much. I mean, dude.
We can go on and on.
I can go on. About the movie itself, I love it. I assume we're going to get into what we do and do not like about the film.
If there's anything, not even what we do and we don't like, just sort of like your last sort of, I don't have a lot about the movie I don't like.
Yeah.
I will say there's some, if we're going to stay on that, because I try not to like, when I like a movie, I never focus on what I don't like.
I have one specific thing I don't like about the film.
Honestly, even in my notes, I was like, there's really not much I like about it. I mean, a couple of times, though, some of the performances are a little at times. They're a little odd, but I wouldn't say it hinders anything. Like the scene with Alan Cummings is a little kind of over the top, and like his reactions all giddy and stuff.
Well, because he's hitting on him.
Because he's obviously playing a gay character and he thinks he's hot and stuff. But it's a little it feels a little out of place. But I know why it's there, because that's the only way he's going to find out about his friend who's gone missing, Nick Nightingale. But outside of that, there's really not much about the movie I don't like. No. Like I said, just a couple of not even performances, just maybe a couple of lines of dialogue are a little like on the nose. There's a little bit of convenience in the plot as well. Like he goes to visit Nick Nightingale, and it just so happens he gets the phone call about the orgy party and learns the password. So it's like, but it's a movie. How else are we going to get this plot? How are we going to get the ball rolling to get Bill to the next place in his journey? So I never, as someone who's written screenplays, you have too, and we've told stories and we've tried to make movies and have made projects and things like that. There's got to be
there's
conveniences to get this.
It's a convenience.
It's a movie.
It's a narrative convenience. It's
a movie.
You have to make that happen.
Yeah, because outside of that, though,
life
and
is
that's
not a
just
movie.
me. Yeah, outside of that, I guess that's me, because I never watch a movie like, oh, why did he jump out the window? He jumped out the window because the plot and the script requires him to get to the next place. He or she needs to get to the next scene. If this doesn't happen,
we don't have a movie.
We don't have a movie. So, like, I'm one of those people that hates when someone's like, oh, I would never do that. Yeah, you would never do that, but this character would do that. So I always forgive films because that's what they are. They're films. But if I had to be nitpicky, I guess that would be it. But even still, it doesn't bother me because I know that's how they're telling the story, you know, and that's kind of really the only nitpick. A performance here and there, or even not even performance, a line delivery here and there is a little kind of like, that was a little weird. And maybe convenience, but even that didn't bother me. That's probably it. What about you? What's your one nitpick?
It is a nitpick.
Yeah,
it's a nitpick.
I knew it would be.
It's a nitpick. It's the New York City street.
Yeah,
the street. Okay, forget that it really doesn't look like New York. It resembles St. Mark's Place a little bit.
It's like Christopher Street.
It resembles
that area, yeah.
It resembles it, but it's not. But that's not even my nitpick. My nitpick is, and again, it goes back to Kubrick was not a fucking perfectionist. He was not, okay? And this alone proves it. It is a single street that this was a set that they built, okay? When Rainbow Costumes is on one side, Sonata Cafe is across the fucking street.
Yeah.
Okay? The cab comes down the block, you see the street, you see that corner. The cab comes down the block later from when it comes down the block going in it, you see that corner. When he's walking when he leaves the dead guy, and then he gets accosted by those guys on the street and they call him gay.
Yeah.
They knock him into a car. He
It's
goes
the same
to
block.
It's the same block. He goes to a corner, and that corner is where he meets Domino. And that's the same corner that the cab will now turn down 2 more times. We see Gillespie's bar next to Sonata Cafe. We don't see the Sonata Cafe again. We only see that when we have to. But Gillespie's is seen in the background 3 different times in the movie when you're not supposed to be anywhere near Sonata Cafe.
It's supposed to be a different location.
Yes. And then at one point he goes into the, because he goes to Sonata Cafe and he's trying to get to the diner. He goes to the diner next door because, when do they open up? And he goes into this diner. Okay. Later on in the movie, he goes into the same thing and it's a different diner. That he
it's
enters.
like a little cafe or something he goes into. Yeah.
The first time it's a diner, the second time it's a cafe. But he went through the same door. You know?
Yeah, I guess they just had that stretch of road and they had to work with it. Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to say. Those are the things where I say he was not a perfectionist. All the money and all the time and all the effort that they spent, he said one street is fine.
He tried to cheat it, but it just didn't really work.
And he didn't. And it didn't work. And he didn't fix it. All the things he would fix and meticulously craft this and change this, 8 months choreographing a orgy scene that we're not going to use. Yeah. And he did nothing about this set. You know? Yeah. That this was enough. And it would work.
I like how fake it feels. I don't know why.
It does feel very fake.
I've always loved that like one stretch of a block that just obviously feels like a set.
Yeah, I feel like it's the thing I don't like, but my brain kind of says I almost feel like he might have done it on purpose because every scene, everything that Tom Cruise goes through, every time Bill goes to another, it starts on this street. So it's almost like he's going in circles. Like he can't get anywhere.
It's like a nightmare. He's just going over and over.
Well, he's going to here, and then he goes to the hooker, and with the hooker, he's rebuffed, and then he leaves, and then he goes to the Sonata Cafe, and he goes to the, and everything.
It's like the same 4 locations over and over
and
again.
And it's almost like he's just stuck in this cycle where it's like no matter how hard you try, nothing's going to change. You are not in control. You can't make these decisions, And
it's interesting because we never see him enter his home from the outside, his office.
No, we don't see the outside.
I think do we? I know we see the one hospital where he goes to the morgue.
No, he comes up the elevator. He comes up the elevator.
I know the morgue. We see the lobby where he goes to the morgue. You see the hospital lobby of that hospital, but and then the toy store at the very end, which was an actual toy store. They actually went to like a toy store in London or the UK where they shot it. But it looks like FAO Schwartz a little bit.
It does. I think that's the intention. It's supposed to be New York. So
they did a good job with that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that didn't even bother me because I think it was like more stylistic. I took it as like stylistic and maybe just poor
it's
use of continuity.
It's specifically the big sign that says Gillespie's.
No, I know.
It's
in the back. Yeah.
Yes, specifically Gillespie's. Like, come on. We're clearly in the same spot. You just took a cab from one place and went here, and you're still in front of Gillespie's.
He went 10 feet, and that was it.
Like you're still there. That's the only thing that bothers me about it. Because I'm like, come on, man, you could have just changed the Gillespie's sign.
Yeah, like in between days, just change it to a different block.
I was talking to my friend Phil about this, about Kubrick, and I said, could you imagine what Kubrick would be like making films today? I feel like he would be David Fincher, that paints out everything in the background. But I also feel like because of that ability to change everything, the film would never be done. He would be working on a film for 20 years because he's still changing backgrounds and tweaking colors and
decade-long filmmaking.
Yes, Gillespie's would not be fucking Gillespie's. That would have, you know what I mean? Yeah. All those, he would keep tweaking them. That's the only thing I dislike. The thing I like the most, I could go on about forever, and it's the Christmas lights.
Yeah.
The Christmas lights themselves are a character.
Yeah.
They are their own character of the film, and they symbolize his safety. They symbolize his sanity. They symbolize the family, and they are a safety net. What you said earlier, the blue light actually represents danger. And every time there's a blue light in the movie, you'll see it happens. This is when something bad is happening to him. There's always a blue light. It's in Ziegler's office at the end.
Yeah.
It's when we get to the end of the film, when he comes home, the entire house is bathed in blue light now. All of it. The bedroom,
the whole bedroom,
the dining room, the living room, everything is blue light all of a sudden and then he goes into the bedroom and the mask is there. They have completely invaded his life. The scene where Alice is arguing with him is bathed in blue. She's got the blue light behind her. But
when she wakes up from her nightmare and all that.
The nightmare is blue.
Yeah.
The dream itself that he's picturing in his head is blue. And when he comes home to find the mask, the bedroom is blue and he's coming out of the warm hallway. So it's like he thought he was safe. The Christmas lights, the multicolor lights actually lead him through the movie. He follows them. He actually follows the lights. When you watch it in the movie, it's insane. This is the meticulous nature of Kubrick, where he does this sort of thing. The lights are actually leading him through the world. They even trick him into danger. There are no Christmas lights. Not a single one in the entire orgy building.
No, not a single Christmas tree either.
Not a single Christmas tree.
Every room almost has a Christmas tree as well. So
Ziegler's house has a couple of stars. There's a tree.
Yeah.
And then there's lights everywhere, but they're not Christmas lights. They're just these cascading
like these white lights. Yeah.
Yes. It's false light. It's fake. It's giving Bill the sense of security, but it's fake because it's just these white lights. It's not the multicolored lights of his tree. Mm-hmm. Okay. And even when they go to when they're in the toy store in the end, there's no Christmas lights until the very last moment when they decide to do this. They walk through the whole store. And there's no Christmas lights. It's a store. It's a Christmas toy store. There's no lights. And then they turn a corner and we go into close-up and suddenly there's lights around, multicolored lights around their heads when they make the decision to just pretend none of this happened. You know, those lights represent safety and security for Bill. Even when Ziegler calls him to at the end, he walks through Ziegler's house. Suddenly there's multicolored lights and everywhere. And he starts walking down the hall. He goes down this one way, and the guy says, "In here." And like he wasn't expecting to turn left. He was going to go to where he met Ziegler earlier.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
And the guy says, "Oh, in here." And he turns it because he's walking toward the lights at the end of the hallway.
That's cool.
And then he goes into Ziegler's office, into the pool table room. There's no Christmas lights and blue lights in all the windows. He's now surrounded.
Evil.
Dude, this was an article that I started writing a long time ago that I wanted to get through this. And I started going through it again because I still wanted this dive on all of this. Even when he's walking down the street, he gets to the corner. Suddenly there's a light across the street. It's a blue sign, bright blue sign of like and then that's when Domino comes up from behind him and he's standing directly under the blue light, like in the shot.
Yeah.
The blue light is right there and Domino comes up from behind him. Danger. He goes into Domino's apartment. There's Christmas lights here, blue light in the background in the bedroom.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed it. I didn't even think about the correlation between danger, the flickering, colorful lights, and then the blue light kind of symbolizes him.
Yeah,
she shouldn't be there. Basically, is what it's saying.
Yeah.
The Christmas tree too. I do like how the Christmas trees all look different in different locations. So, like in Domino's apartment, the prostitute, her tree's all disheveled and cheap looking. Then in his apartment, he's got this big fancy one.
I think the size of the trees has something to do with it too, but I haven't broken down who's got a small tree versus a large tree and what each. That's the dive I really want to get into. Like,
I was watching the movie and I was like, damn, if you made a drinking game, take a shot every time you see a Christmas tree, you'd be blackout drunk after Eyes Wide Shut. So hence why I said it's such a Christmas movie, and it isn't it. It's such a Christmas movie, and there's no denying it with the decorations. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it that it's like a Christmas film. And like I said, there's no Christmas music the entire film until the very end in the toy store where you hear an instrumental of I forget what Christmas song it is, but it's a known, a recognizable Christmas song.
The Shining has always been like my favorite of his. Over the years, every time I watch this, I say, no, I think this is my favorite. And then I kind of
One
forget
notch.
about it.
Yeah.
And then I kind of forget about it. And then I watch it again. I'm like, fuck, this is so much better than The Shining. Oh,
I don't know a lot of people that agree with that statement, but
yeah, well, again, tell them it's an A24 movie and they'll worship it.
but yes, closing thoughts, Manny. Eyes Wide Shut.
I think it's a damn near perfect film. I think that for this to be his final film, it was truly a magnum opus. This was the culmination of everything he's ever done, his storytelling style, his direction, his set design, his colors, all of it. I think the film is perfect. I think it is probably the best performance of Tom Cruise's career, because if you really think about it, Tom Cruise is,
He's Mission Impossible, man.
For lack of a better
He's jumping
term,
out of planes and
yeah,
shit now.
well, even back then, he was, I mean, I wouldn't say tough guy, but he wasn't, like he was a macho guy. Like think Cocktail and Risky Business. Think A Few
Top
Good
Gun.
Men.
Yeah.
Top Gun. Yeah, he's a guy. He's a strong, confident guy. And this is an entire film about him being weak and self-conscious and insecure and jealous, and unsure of himself, and just stumbling through in the world, smacking him upside his head left and right, and not being able to control everything. And he is a character. He's an actor where his characters control everything. He's always the center of the world. And I mean, really, all his films, that's what they are, is that he's the center of the story and everything kind of revolves around him. His actions reverberate through the narrative. And this is the exact opposite. That's why I say this is a horror film. It's not a direct horror film, but horror films tend to be a character going through a situation that they cannot control. They are merely trying to survive.
Yep.
And that is what this is. This is a situation, no matter how hard he tries to control it,
He can't. Yeah.
He cannot.
There's nothing you can do about it.
He's just trying to survive. And then at the end of the film, like most horror films, we have to go back to some level of status quo, get back to normal. And they consciously decide, we're just going to pretend that that Jeepers Creepers truck did not chase us down the street. We're going to pretend this didn't happen. Yes. And that is why I say this is a horror film.
I agree with that statement. Just it being kind of one dude's really shitty evening and trying to feel better about himself. I feel like the movie tells that story to a T. This goes back to what I said earlier, how there's people that don't understand it. I'm like, what is there not to understand? It's very straightforward. Like, it's in your face.
I think those people wanted a Nicole Kidman, Tom Cruise porno.
Maybe
that
possibly.
they wanted the sex tape, and that was what a lot of reviews at the time said. They were all upset that this isn't a sexy movie. It's not supposed to be a sexy movie. Did you watch it?
Yeah, and I agree too what you said, how this is kind of like, this is the Stanley Kubrick film. He unfortunately, when he passed away, I'd say it was on a high note. Yep. He made a great movie, and I think a lot of people have come to terms over the year, and they'd agree, like, this is the Stanley Kubrick film. I've read that on reviews and stuff, on Letterboxd and things like that, where people have come around to this movie and now look at it through a different lens and appreciate it for what it is. And also, to kind of end it here, it's a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
Watch it
Can
this
I
Christmas.
add one more thing?
Yes.
I want to dispel a rumor real quick.
Okay.
There's always been a rumor for years that there's 24 minutes that have been cut out of the film.
Yeah.
Doesn't exist. No. There are entire books published on the production diary of this film, where they put the production notes up against the script, and there is zero evidence that 20 minutes has been cut out of this film. There is no production notes, there's no production diary, there's no script error, there's nothing. There are whole opuses, whole books written on this film, and no one has found what 20 minutes is missing.
I mean, the movie's almost 3 hours long, so
yeah, exactly. Then they say and they say that they cut that out because the Illuminati was
God.
That is a big pervasive rumor about this film, that Kubrick was trying to say something about the Illuminati. No, he was trying to say something about the shallowness of rich people. Yeah. This ritual is not a satanic ritual. They're not a cult. They're a bunch of rich people who want to have anonymous sex with hookers. And they do the ritual aspect of it to ensure that every person in there never speaks a word of it, because it would ruin their lives if they're professional. And what do you mean you're having satanic cult orgies? That would ruin them. So it's almost just a safeguard to keep everyone from who's itching to talk about who they fucked last weekend. You don't. Because if anybody found out how the circumstances of the sex happened, your life would be over. I don't think that there's super powerful people in that party. I think they're just a bunch of people like Ziegler who want to feel powerful.
I mean, to me, that's the brilliance of him as a filmmaker and as a director. It's like you can take and interpret any of his films and you can make up any kind of ridiculous nonsense. And I feel like even though he's not around to see that, this all came to fruition after he had passed away already. Yeah. But regardless, I think that his movies are so specific in certain aspects with, with set design and things like we talked about, the blue and the red and all that you can interpret it any way you want, and he's still telling a cohesive story.
Yeah.
This is still a very straightforward story, but you can take small details and be like, oh, he faked the moon landing. He did this, the Illuminati. And in reality, there's just a dude that loved making movies, and he just loved pretty things, and he wanted to add small details like that into his film for artistic merit, and psychos are dissecting it in a different way.
That's the beauty of art. What you said earlier, for the sake of, trying to not sound pretentious about it, but that's what makes good art. Good art can be interpreted multiple ways, and Stanley Kubrick's films were art.
Let's not use that word. It frightens me. But I do love you. And there is something very important that we need to do as soon as possible.
What's that?
Fuck.
So that was Eyes Wide Shut. Be sure to subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Blue Sky now.
Blue Sky.
At Haunted Hangover. Head over to hauntedhangover.com where you can find links to everything, including our Patreon page, where you can get early access to episodes and exclusive bonus content.
And be sure, after you get out of the satanic orgy, and I know you're listening to us on your way home from your satanic orgy, just pull up your phone and give us a little review. Write us a review and take this and send it to your friends and say, hey, listen to these lunatics talk about movies.
And as always, remember, the best cure for a hangover is
more booze.
Happy holidays.